I'm Amy Nechtem, former Chief Justice of the Massachusetts Juvenile Court. After decades on the bench, I've had the privilege of hearing real lives unfold of children, families, and the systems that shape them in ways both seen and unseen. I now want to bring those conversations beyond the courtroom. This isn't just a legal conversation, it's a human one. Come take a seat by her honor. Welcome. I'm Amy Nechtem, the former Chief Justice of the Massachusetts Juvenile Court Department, and this is By Her Honor. My distinguished guest today is Dr. Almudena Abeyta. She is the Superintendent of the Chelsea Public Schools right here in Massachusetts. With nearly 3 decades in educational leadership, Dr. Abeyta has dedicated her life's work to ensuring that all children, especially our most vulnerable and challenged children, have the right to thrive, equitable opportunity to education, to do well in school and beyond. Under her leadership, Chelsea has deepened its commitment to multilingual learners, to early literacy, to mental health support, and equity-driven instruction in our schools. Recognized as a Commonwealth heroine, as well as a leading Latina champion here in Massachusetts. And Dr. Abeyta, congratulations for those well-deserved honors. Dr. Abeyta continues to model what transformative educational leadership looks like in action. Welcome, Dr. Abeyta. Thank you for joining me today on By Her Honor. As you know, I grew up in Chelsea. I'm a Chelsea kid, and my love for that city is enduring and quite strong. I have said often that I credit my grounding and my whatever success may attribute to me to that upbringing in Chelsea and that Chelsea school system, and has given me a sense of community. You know, Chelsea's history has always been one of welcoming immigrants, a vibrant gateway city. My parents themselves were first-gen Americans. Now, it's a different population now in Chelsea than when I grew up. Can you share what the population looks like and presents in Chelsea through your lens as a superintendent and the challenges that you're facing for educating some well over 5,000, I believe, students in your community? Could you share with us your thoughts on that, please?
Sure. Chelsea definitely is a city that has always welcomed immigrant families. And then Chelsea Public Schools, our mission actually shares that. And our mission in Chelsea Public Schools is that we're a gateway system that welcomes and educates all. So we welcome all of our diverse students. Right now, the population and the demographics of Chelsea Public Schools we have 87% Latino students. And so you can imagine the Latino students that we do have, they come from El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, Puerto Rico. And so all across the Latino, there's different Latino groups represented in that 87%. And so we're a vibrant community. We love our culture, and in our public schools, we welcome everybody.
Right, and you've said in our conversations that schools alone can't be the end all, be all to support our young people in community. The time spent in school for children is about 20% of their lives. So under your leadership, you saw a need to address and expand resources for children in Chelsea, and you established what's called the Chelsea Children's Cabinet, bringing business leaders together, community leaders, advocates, leveraging community to create what I call a collective impact to best serve, particularly our most at-risk students, but all students. Can you share with us the mission of the cabinet, why you thought the need for it, at the outset, and then I'll ask you a further question as to what you see as the successes already that you've seen.
Sure. During the pandemic, Chelsea was the hardest hit community in Massachusetts. And as we were in the pandemic and remote learning, I began to worry a little bit. And I remember being in my office, and some of us were coming in, even though the students were in remote learning. And my chief of staff at the time, Dr. Jennings, and I were in the office, and I was sharing with him how I'm really concerned about our students. What are they, what is it that they're going to need when they come back to in-person learning? And the needs were already great before the pandemic. So I could only imagine, and I started to worry
Mm,
what is going to be when we come back, and how are we going to meet the needs of our kids? And so, in brainstorming, I was like, what if we formed a children's cabinet? Because the burden was so heavy. I was like, I can't, as a superintendent, do this alone. And I need everybody in this community needs to wrap around our students and and support us, because students, we don't have students all day. They leave us at 3 o'clock, 2:30, and they go home, or they go to after school, or they go to the Boys and Girls Clubs, or they're in the streets. So I wanted to make sure that we were providing wraparound services to our students. And one of the focus of that first of the children's cabinet, that first 2 years, was actually mental health. And so as a team, we focused on mental health. We did outreach about mental health. We created Chelsea Cares, and we had a mental health fair, and all of our community came together around mental health. The city gave me funds to fund telehealth therapy, and so we really worked on this focus on mental health as a children's cabinet. And so the whole point of the children's cabinet is to address students' needs holistically. And now with our children's cabinet, and it's 5 years old now, we're
mm,
we're looking at how do we align resources in our community. So who is doing birth to three in our community? And then the schools, we have pre-K to 12, but then what about college and career? And then how do we align all of our, like, my goal is to align all of our students in high school to internships while they're in high school for college and career. So how do we get our community partners on board to have, so our students have internships while they're in high school? We already have early college, which we have an
right.
amazing early college partnership with Bunker Hill Community College that we've had since 2018. And we have almost 300 students every year in early college.
That's, now, if I can just interrupt for a moment, because you're making such an important point here. I know that the work of the Chelsea Cabinet, and you have, I think there's over 30 members now, or maybe more in the cabinet from the
Yes.
community that has impacted these children. And can you tell us about one of those children that whose trajectory has been changed as a result of early education? Also, you mentioned something about a Navigators program that we can talk to
Okay.
as well. I know you've got some great stories, particularly about children that are young people. They're not children, but young adults who are already positioned for college as a result of your early intervention at the school, if you would.
Sure. So, part of our children's cabinet is we plugged into the Harvard Ed redesign. And every summer we go to conference there, and we learn from communities across the nation who have children's cabinets. And we also learned about what we call our Navigator program. And we learned from Tennessee, Chattanooga. They have a Navigator program where students are assigned a navigator. These navigators are educators. It could be a paraprofessional, a family liaison, but they work individually with students and they do conduct home visits. Now, if a family's not comfortable with the home visit, they can meet them at a restaurant. But it's like the whole point of that is to build relationships with the families too, because we know that students who are struggling, we have to build relationships with the families. And so during this time, it's not like, oh, your student has an attendance problem. It's tell me about your hopes and dreams for your student, because every parent has hopes and dreams for their child.
Mm.
And so this navigator builds relationships with the parents and the students. And if they need tutoring support, then the navigator can say, "Oh, let me connect you to this." So that's why it's a navigator, because the navigator helps the families navigate the school system and all the services that we have
Mm.
surrounding us, the children's cabinet.
Right.
So we had one student, and I'm using a fake name as a student,
Okay, yes.
um, Anna, who has been in this country for 3 years, and she's triplet actually, and all three of them are seniors at our high school. And she came to this country 3 years ago, and she wasn't necessarily struggling with attendance, but she just needed help navigating this new country that she's in. Brilliant students, and so she got connected to a navigator. And then last year, the navigator was so impressed with her, we were looking for a student to present at Harvard with us. So Maria and her mom came to Harvard with us and were highlighted about how the navigator helped her get into a program called La Vida Scholars.
Yep.
And this was a program that really provides college support. And so Anna is presenting at Harvard, and then the director of the Ed Redesign program, Dr.
Yep.
Paul Revel, former Secretary of Education, he hears her story. She says she wants to go to medical school. Brilliant young student, and she's bilingual, just amazing student. He after the presentation, he says, my wife works for the medical science program at Harvard University, at the Harvard Med School. Maybe we can get Maria plugged into this. So 3 weeks later, last summer, lo and behold, who is enrolled in the Harvard Medical Science program? Maria from Chelsea. And I got to go visit them. I visited her. I specifically went to visit her in the program, and there were only about maybe 12, 15 students in this program, mostly girls, which is interesting, from across the nation. And the students that were there, most of them paid $5,000 to be there. And Maria
Mhm.
got in, her fees were waived. And then Maria started to apply for colleges and was
Yeah.
needing support. And I got a text from her the other day,
Yeah.
and she's like, Miss, I just want you to know that I got accepted to Middlebury
Wow.
on a full ride,
Yes.
and La Vida Scholars helped me. And my siblings, so her other two siblings got accepted to
Ah,
Middlebury as well.
that's a incredible story, and congratulations to you and your team for making that happen. You mentioned navigators, so that truly anybody from community could step up and be a navigator and assist the Chelsea schools in providing a path for these students, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah, we want to grow our Navigator program. Right now, we have 70 students in the Navigator program. We have 50 navigators. We pay a stipend. We provide training because we don't want people to go out unequipped. But the goal is, I like to dream, and
Yeah,
sometimes I'm like,
good.
I don't know how I'm going to afford this, but I really want to make sure that not just our struggling students have a navigator. Every student has a navigator.
Right, right, right.
Um,
Wonderful point.
Yeah, so eventually we're gonna grow this Navigator program. It's still year two pilot and it's going really well, but we have desires to grow it where if our city manager wanted to be a navigator, if our state rep, our senator, if people want to be navigators, um, come and join us.
Great.
So we're gonna get there. We're
There's your invitation right there.
exactly.
And if I may, you said something very, very important I wanted to follow up on, and that there are a significant amount of students that are not attending a school. The absenteeism is high in some of our, particularly our at-risk students. And is there a way that these students can get better plugged in so that they're attending school, almost a draw? And that often comes from our educators themselves, your faculty, your teachers, and a sense of what you called belonging, because as you said, belonging, a sense of belonging is fundamental to learning.
Absolutely. So in Chelsea, we several years ago, we're working on the belonging and not just
Mm.
like for students, but also for educators. And so
Yes.
if and so it really is true. If we know our students, and we say this in Chelsea a lot, by name, strength, and story, then they'll want to come to school.
Yeah.
So, and we believe that for our educators too, that we'll know our teachers, our educators by name, strength, and story, and building relationships because relationships really do matter. I had a student at Chelsea Opportunity Academy who was really struggling getting to school, and her teacher became her navigator, and he's like, "Do you need an alarm clock? I'm gonna come knock on your door on my way into work."
Yeah.
Chelsea's so small, we're only 2 mile radius, so it's easy for him to go find her where she lives. And
Right.
are you coming to school? And so when she wasn't coming to school, he would call her, "Where are you? I'm waiting for you." And she shares the story of how sometimes if it was like she's like, "Oh, I just wanted to sleep in." And
Mm.
if it was raining outside, I didn't want to mess my hair up. And that was a real thing for her. She's like, "Nah, I'm not going to go to school. It's raining today. I don't feel like walking in the rain." And so Max, um, and I have no problem sharing his shouting out Max at Chelsea Opportunity Academy. He called her, he talked to her parent, he said, "I'm waiting for you," um, and just built a relationship with her. And she shares how she started coming to school more. And
Mm.
and then by the end of her senior year, you couldn't get her out of school. And when she graduated, she still kept coming.
Yeah.
And and she goes, "Now you can't get me to leave."
Yeah, and it takes that one caring, invested adult, somebody in the community that, whether it's a community member or educator, that cares about a child. And I've seen it over and over again in the courtroom with children that their lives are changed because somebody shows up and believes in them. So I'm thrilled to hear that that's happening and not surprised in Chelsea. You've talked and keenly focused in your work about equity in education and what that means to you, and that all of our children should have equitable access to the best education possible. And I know there was a time early on in your career that you began in private schools, but your entire life career has been spent in service to public schools.
Right.
Can you share a little bit about what equity in education means to you and how you see it play out strategically?
Sure. So my goal as superintendent in Chelsea is to make sure that my students are getting a robust education that includes all of the arts, that includes all of the wonderful things that my counterparts in let's say the Welsleys, the Westons, that
Mm,
that their parents provide for them.
hmm
So one of my priorities in the strategic plan that I have is to increase access and opportunity, and it's very clear. And so we have built a tremendous extended learning program after school for students because we want them to have access. We want them to have opportunity. So we provide, um, early in my tenure in Chelsea, I met with the executive director, for example, with the Boston Children's Choir. And my daughter, I used to drive all the way to South Boston and take her when she was little to the Boston Children's Choir. And so I was sharing with him, I don't think my families are going to get up on a
Yeah.
Saturday and drive all the way to South Boston to for their kids to attend Boston Children's Choir. Could we think about how we bring Boston Children's Choir to Chelsea? And Andres, who's the
Hmm.
EED there, brand new, he's like, oh, man, let's talk about that. And so we did. And we said, let's do this as an after school program. So we started an after school program with the
Ah,
Boston Children's Choir at our elementary schools. We had 50 kids participate after school. So they're getting the Boston Children's Choir in Chelsea. And it's pretty phenomenal. I remember the first rehearsal practice they had. I showed up and so did my team, my leadership team. And we were so excited because it took
mm,
a lot to lift us off the ground. We got private funding from the Hestia Foundation, and we were all sitting there watching the kids sing, and we were all crying because it's like the vision finally had come to
right,
life. And
right.
so we have um, Soccer Without Borders. And as a result of that partnership, our students, and we've been in partnership with them for a while, our students are going to be mascots at the World Cup. So
Oh,
when you
great.
see students on the field for the World Cup, those could be Chelsea students that are going to be mascots. And so we just look for ways that we can provide wonderful opportunities for our students. We partnered with the Museum of Science, and our students, we every year we take them to the Museum of Science. We use their curriculum in our after school programs. So we're really trying to make sure that we're closing opportunity gaps for our kids so that when, and our goal is that we want them to be college and career ready. So
Yes.
that's what equity means to me.
Thank you. And you mentioned early on about the mental health and wraparound services necessary for children to thrive and the challenge in assuring that those resources are available. These are certainly trying times for education, higher education, and beyond. How are you finding the ability to access those resources? I mean, you have to be creative. I know you have a number of balls up in the air now with collaborating with the northeastern states and others in creating strategic directions forward. Can you briefly give me your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we've been very fortunate in the last couple of years. We had a lot of funding coming in
Yeah.
with Student Opportunity Act dollars and then with SR dollars from COVID relief stimulus funds. And so I was able to build out a lot of programs. What's a challenge now is
Mm,
the money has stopped coming in, and it's like you have to make decisions. And so when I'm making budgetary decisions and I also am facing a budget shortfall,
mm,
I align everything back to our strategic plan. And so that strategic plan guides me. And so for some of our extended learning programs, we're fortunate that we've been able to apply for grants. And so a lot of our extended learning is grant funded, or we look for money, or,
mm,
or we again we're having to be really resourceful and
sure.
in some of this. But we're fortunate. I have an amazing team. My extended learning, he was the coordinator. He's now the officer of innovation and opportunity, and he'll find grants, and that's how we're funding some of our
Sure.
programs. So
Yep. as near the end of our interview, the importance that you mention about your children, and I hold dear and decades in public service, is that every child has an opportunity, and as I said earlier, a right to thrive. And not all children are born fortunate with parents that are stable, parents that provide a secure, supportive atmosphere and environment for children. And I know in Chelsea you're doing a lot to intervene and change the trajectory of those children. Well, looking ahead, if you can give us one hope that you have, I know you're active strategically and working hard at that, for the role that education can play in shaping a more equitable, supportive future for our children. How do we as a community change the chance, each one of us change the chance for our children, our neighbors, our community to thrive in the few minutes that we have?
Yeah, I mean, I really do think that again, as an educator, I don't believe that I can do this alone.
Mm,
And I think it's important to get in, to ask to get involved in your local school system. Like we have our Navigator program, and we're always looking for people who want to contribute to our children's cabinet, and in small ways and in big ways. And so I think just getting plugged into the local school system is important. And again, it as a school system, I know we can't do this alone. If I'm
mm,
going to raise my graduation rates, I have to look at I have to look at housing. Many,
mm,
those things impact students, and like, why isn't the student coming to school? Maybe because they're going from house to house, or there's food insecurity. And so there's many ways to
mm.
involve. Like I have the local Zonta chapter, and every year they give us um, gift cards from Market Basket. And at the holiday season, though, they donate gift cards, and they say, here are some gift cards for you to give to families.
Mm,
And we know that you know the families, so please
yep,
use your discretion on how and who you want to give these to. So
right.
there's many ways. Prom dresses right now.
Yeah.
It's prom season, and our local Chamber of Commerce has a lot of collected a
Oh,
lot of prom dresses for our kids. And what's interesting is some our young men needed tuxedos, so we got them connected to Russo's,
great way.
and they got fitted for Texas. And one of the students was saying, I didn't know how I was going to be able
Mm,
to afford a tux. And so those are the simple things. When our kids graduate, and they get accepted to colleges, we have found that our students don't have like a lot of when you go off to the dorm, you get the beddings and the sliders and everything that you need for a college dorm. Some of our students
mm,
don't have anything when they're going to college. And so we often find those students, and because I'm plugged into the local Rotary, I can ask Rotary for a donation, and then we can go out and buy bedding for a student, and we'll ask like, what's your favorite color? We did this a couple years ago,
right.
and we found out the student's favorite color. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, my bedspread's my favorite color." And
Mm,
so those are the things, because we
oh,
as a team, as a superintendent's team, we are building relationships with our students too.
right.
And my happiest place is going to the high school and getting hugs from my students. And
Yeah.
it's like that's the best. So
You said something very important there, that it's the simple things, and it's about the humanity that we have for our children, for our neighbors, for our community. And as I close, I think as I open, I'm a proud Chelsea kid, and the community remains vibrant, and I am along with many, are grateful for your service and your leadership of the Chelsea Public Schools. Thank you, Dr. Abeyta, for joining me today by her honor. And thank you to the committed team in Chelsea and Chelsea schools and the community and far-reaching beyond that help change the chance for our children to thrive. And to our viewers, I hope you enjoyed the conversation and that you're inspired to know that you too can make a difference in a child's life. I appreciate you joining in and listening. Come take a seat with me by her honor next time.